have some form or fashion of funding by sources other than Harnett County. And why that's important is they could qualify for Harnett Promise if they had the need to, but many of them, as you can see, qualified for a federal Pell Grant. Some of them actually got enough scholarship funds that they did not need full funding or like needed only partial funding from Harnett Promise. Why that's important to me as a parent and as an educator is there are funding opportunities for students above and beyond or receiving Harnett Promise. One of the most important things we can do with our students is teach them where to find those opportunities. And if they move on to university and they learn to fill out scholarship applications and learn the process of how to find that funding, we're making them more responsible adults in that regard. All right, then to show you where the breakdown is in terms of program areas, I told you that 36%, actually about 36.5%, were majoring in associate science, associate arts, or associate engineering, and planning to head to university. 20% were in pre-health science, meaning they were taking the coursework needed to apply to our college's nursing program, physical therapy assistant, those kinds of things. Those are selected admissions programs that require a ramp up primarily general education. Public service technologies, which include criminal justice, being probably the dominant program in that regard. 14% industrial tech. Technology would include things like welding, machine, industrial systems. Business technology, 6%. You see a rough breakdown of where those goods are made, and it should probably not come as a surprise that 20%, the dominant career tech category, was pre-health science. If you look at the jobs data, that's still the dominant sector in terms of where the job demand is. So it's good to see that our students are choosing that as a focus of their study. All right, the proposed changes are really two. One is a simple extension of the waiver of provision first approved by this board in July 2020. And essentially what we're trying to do here is to get an extension of what we did for last year's class to recognize they tried to get the 12 credit hours under their belt as part of the eligibility. And if they showed a good attempt to do so, but because of COVID restrictions or difficulties, challenges, they weren't able to complete those credits and maybe have to withdraw. We don't punish them for making the attempt but not following all the way through. The reason that we brought this up again is we're still seeing evidence of students who are attempting some college courses, and due to the nature of the way K-12 instruction is right now, they're struggling across the board, and we would like to respectfully ask for an extension of that waiver provision for the past point. Second one is the approved request to change the MOU. I'll go ahead, and this is actually the three elements that this board approved in July 2020 for the class of 2020. And we simply ask that this board consider extending that waiver provision. Now, this is something I copied and pasted directly from the waiver provision from this past time. I'll move on to the proposed MOU changes, and then I'll be quiet for a minute and entertain any questions. These changes, two of these are really substantive in nature in terms of what we've learned about our students and our student cohorts and how they take classes. The third of which is really just a clerical change. It's just recognizing that we created a generic email address that will go to a person who is managing these students and their intake. The first change, the substantive change, is, and you see the red line edit there. In the bold format is really where we're adding language. Be a high school graduate from a public or private high school located within Harnett County or qualified homeschool as defined in CGS while residing in Harnett County who will attend college as a support clerk, as a degree seeking or as a credential seeking student within the 2-year eligibility period following his or high school graduation. Students be required to register for approved courses within their active curriculum for continuing education program study. You see the red line deletion of the students directly have recognized that not all our students come to us specifically seeking a two-year degree. Some of them, for example, might want a welding diploma, and they know that's what they need for AWS certification, and that's all they need to go get a job that pays well above a living wage. They don't need to go for a full tier degree to do that. Similarly, we have students that recognize that what they really want to do is to do a biowork, which is essentially a biopharma continuing education program for about 15 to 16 weeks. Could extend up to a full year, but that's done primarily under continuing education, but that's really what they want to do. What we do not want to do, I think, is limit their options, as long as those options are things that are legitimate college programs that lead to a degree. Students have indicated that they like having some flexibility in what they want to study. And some of them ask, and their parents ask, do they have to go for a full two-year degree? And what they really want to study is a technical certificate or technical diploma program that's either one. So that's the first one we're recommending. And notice summer terms are not included, is struck in this proposal as well, because many of our career tech education programs have defined summer semesters, meaning that credit hours are spread across usually 5 semesters, including the summer in between year 1 and year 2. And we didn't think it was fair to those students to indicate that this would not support their summer studies, when those courses are typically only offered. So part 1, subsection D2, the 2 years of eligibility beginning in the fall semester after high school graduation ends following the spring semester of the second year after high school graduation. No extension will be granted. All right, the rationale behind that phrase, the second year after high school graduation, recognizes that not every student, we learned by working with them, that not every student needs to start in the fall semester. Now, I'll give you a great example. Young man wants to register and as an Army reservist. The training goes into the fall semester, and that effectively negates that recent high school graduate's ability to do their initial training, plus go to school at the same time. And recognizing that kind of pattern of fairness unwittingly, we thought, what we need to do is recognize that the student has a 2-year window of eligibility. If they need that fall semester to take care of a family issue, if there is a medical issue, if there is a wish to take 1 semester off of work, pay bills, support the family, or go into military service or volunteer service, we wanted to respect that student's wishes as long as they understand that there is a defined 2-year window of eligibility that will run out after that second year beyond high school. And then finally, part 1, subsection C1, students interested in participating in the program must call EC revised phone number and revised email address, and that's simply recognizing the change we made on our side to streamline. That, in essence, are the proposed MOU changes, and I'll pause and entertain any questions.
Any questions, Commissioners? Okay, thank you, John. Hearing no questions, I think did a good job laying that out for us, and we will put this on our agenda for our meeting next week, our voting meeting next week, to consider these changes, consider approval of these changes. That's
very exceptionally well as a group, and we are doing some of the preliminary work for the 2021 graduating class. We've already had 88 students who've done the preliminary work for the exams.
That's great. We certainly appreciate all that you and the college are doing to provide these opportunities for our young people and to enjoy our partnership with you in that effort.
We thank the board. We appreciate
Thank you. Okay, I believe the next item on the agenda is discussion of bus patrol. Mr. Pell?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. So we're back here before you today regarding bus patrol. Obviously, we've discussed this before to seek further guidance at this point. We've been a part of meetings with bus patrol, the school board, the sheriff who's here to provide some input as well. So we discussed the procedures in all these meetings and whether you want to move forward. Generally, the idea is that bus patrol would install the equipment on the buses, and they'll be the cameras would be activated once the school bus comes to a stop, and it would capture the image of the license plate of the car passing a stopped school bus. All that data flows back to bus patrol. Bus patrol then puts together a packet, and that packet would go to the sheriff's office. Well, as of right now, it would be the sheriff's office unless we had a contract with another law enforcement agency to review the citations. But under the statute, all these packages have to be reviewed by a law enforcement officer employed by a law enforcement agency. So it has to be done internally. It can't be contracted out with a security force or retired individuals or so on. So then if the sheriff's office proves that there is a violation under that statute, bus patrol would then issue a civil citation for the individual to pay. There's an appeals process if they want to appeal, if they want to fill out an affidavit saying that they were not the driver of the vehicle at the time. And the appeal process would be them going through a appeal board that as a county we would be responsible for setting up. It's our discretion how that board would want to be, whether you're just county employees, civilians, or a combination of both. And in talking to the sheriff, it may be beneficial to actually have one civilian at least on that board. But again, that's up to you all and how you want everything to look. Now, the other part of this, though, the trickier, well, there's kind of a lot of tricky parts to it, but one of the main tricky parts in this is under statute, if someone's then charged criminally for passing a stopped school bus, just charged, not convicted, if charged, we cannot issue a civil citation. And if we happen to issue a civil citation and they pay it, then that money has to be returned. And so there is a logistic item to this of when someone's charged criminally of being able to notify bus patrol to dismiss the civil citation. That's not probably too difficult if it's the sheriff's office charging the individual. However, the issue comes when it's other agencies. And so there has to be some kind of line of communication. I think bus patrol said they would assist in that process, but there has to be a process and be able to review whether someone's been charged criminally. We can always put on the citation itself that if you've been charged with a crime, to notify bus patrol that you would not be obligated to pay the civil fine. However, the way the statute is also written is it's incumbent upon the county and to ensure that the person doesn't get charged. So while we can notify the individual, but then it should be us as the entity dismissing the civil citation. So there's that. Also, the sheriff's office is obligated that they have enough information to charge criminally. So they're going to get this package that's going to have video image of the vehicle passing and the license plate and so on. If a bus driver if they also have information that the bus driver saw it or some other witness saw it, they're going to be obligated to charge criminally. So if they get that packet and they have no charge, they're going to charge criminally. They're not going to approve the civil citation. And also under statute does say criminal prosecution is encouraged. Now, again, we're going to have to figure out what the intent of that is. If we happen to charge civil, but we could charge criminal, does that open up any liabilities? There going to be lawsuits. There's always that concern because we're going to be the first ones to do this. So I don't know exactly what that means. One of the other issues that was brought forward to me by the sheriff and also with the State Patrol is custody issues. So Bus Patrol will be required to provide video of the car passing the bus in any criminal charge. They have to work with law enforcement agencies on that. And so typically chain custody, things like that are either with the sheriff's department or, in this case, the school board or so on. In this case, it's going to be with the Bus Patrol. They're the one, all the information flows through them. And so probably what's going to happen, at least at the very beginning, is if there's a criminal trial or is Bus Patrol is going to have to come down here. Someone from Bus Patrol is going to have to come down here for the change of custody issue for that video evidence to be able to come in a court of law. So that's going to have to be worked out as a logistical issue that law enforcement agencies are going to have. So they're going to have to send out subpoenas to Bus Patrol officials. So that is one thing to think about. Now, if you want to move forward, again, that's your prerogative, and we can make this all work out. I just want to point out some of the issues. Now, we already discussed revenue splits. It's a 60-40 split. 60 goes to Bus Patrol, 40 goes to the school board. Dr. Fleming did say that he'd be willing to pay any administrative costs incurred by the county, and I believe the sheriff said that if they do all the review of these packets, it could be up to be one full-time employee possibly, based on their numbers. Now, I don't know how accurate their numbers are, but if you're going by their numbers, it would take probably one full-time employee to do the review. And then obviously we have the cost of administration of any appeal that may come through. So we'll have to, figure out that item on that cost. Also, we'll have to work out that the Bus Patrol will have to keep the records for no less than 5 years. That's governed by statute as well. So that all these things just have to be worked out. Now, if you want to move forward, the next steps at this point would be having to adopt an ordinance. So before anything can be installed or anything contract signed, you as a board have to adopt an ordinance that's compliant with the statute, allowing for civil citations to be issued. So that'd be step number one. Another step after that would be if, in order to work with the municipalities, they would also need to adopt our own ordinance allowing the county to issue civil citations in their jurisdiction. In conjunction with that, we'll have to work out the contract with Bus Patrol itself, and then all the other logistic items of the appeal board will have to set up, notification system regarding criminal charges, setting up, obviously for if there's going to be a criminal trial, making sure that Bus Patrol is present. So there's all be the things that would be coming after as we're negotiating the contract with Bus Patrol. The only thing I would ask, though, is if you want to adopt an ordinance and move forward with Bus Patrol, is allow me some discretion on the contract. They need to put skin in the game. If we're going to be the first ones, there's a bunch of limitation liability in here that if something happens, the only thing they have to do is pay back the money that was issued. They need to have skin in the game that they need to indemnify us. They need to pay for the costs if we're going to face any kind of lawsuit. So I would ask for that we need to be protected as a county. If Bus Patrol really wants this, they need to protect us as a county, and I would ask for that discretion. And if they're not willing to give it to us, that we would turn this contract down. Sheriff, is there anything you would like to add that I haven't covered?
The one thing that the first sergeant was just up here, and we were talking. I'm a little reluctant to discuss it right now. No offense to the attorney and Dwight, you being an attorney, I don't want to discuss things that a defense attorney can go ahead and use as a defense in this. So these are a couple of things I have concerns with, but I'd rather not go into it publicly right now. I don't, as far as the municipalities, the Highway Patrol and myself, if we just don't want to deal with going in there and getting an agreement with them because we have countywide jurisdiction, we really don't need to do it as far as the municipalities. I'm comfortable they're not going to care one way or the other whether they charge or somebody else charges. So, but if you feel like, Chris, you know more about that, if you feel like we need to have an agreement with them, that's fine. But again, we do traffic inside the city as well as in the county as the Highway Patrol does. So unless you just see the need that we need to do a contract.
But I believe my point is just authorizing the, because we have, this would be civil, obviously criminally you can go in there jurisdiction charge. I just want to make sure that come on my basis, it probably not getting to have the municipalities allow us to issue the civil citations within their jurisdiction. I think that's probably just best practice. I'm not saying, obviously we may need to, it's just extra level of protection just to ensure we can do it within a municipality, charge civilly. Again, any criminal charge, you have that jurisdiction. Oh, and one thing I do want to point out, because I know this question had come up in our meetings. If the contract's terminated for any reason, the equipment does not stay on the bus. It does not become Harnett County School property. Bus Patrol will remove that. So if it's, and either party can terminate this. I'm assuming that if financially this doesn't work out for Bus Patrol, they're not going to continue doing business if we're unhappy with it. But regardless, just be aware that if there's a termination of the contract at any time, they will take that equipment off and we'll have to find another solution to put the equipment back on there. So yeah, just wanted to go over all that, just, go over a couple of concerns. But again, at this point, we've had a lot, we've had a number of meetings. And so I would just ask, the board, what next step you want to take. Again, if you want to move forward, then as I said, the next step would be putting together an ordinance for you to adopt and again, start negotiations on a contract. Money, give us an accounting and then send the funds over for disbursement.
Judges in Harnett County okay with prosecute cases like this using video? I know they deliver a lot of stoplight cameras.
So, and I can't really speak too much to the criminal prosecution because I'm not in there, but video can be used in conjunction with testimony. So in this case, again, the video would be them capturing the vehicle itself and the license plate. So when it captured the driver, is my understanding, it doesn't capture the driver. So you would need more for a criminal charge and in order to convict them. So you'll need the bus driver or someone else witnessing the actual driver as well. But video can be used in conjunction with that in order to convict criminally. Now for civil, all it takes is capturing the license, like the red light cameras. It just takes capturing the license plate of the vehicle. And then if the person wants to appeal that or challenge that, they have to fill out an affidavit, sign an affidavit stating that they were not the driver of the vehicle at the time. And then we'll go through the appeal process. They'll have to bring in, you'll have to provide credible testimony and evidence for that civil citation to be dismissed.
I was just a little bit concerned with the red light camera being phased out. This looked like a gimmick to make money. But I think that's some of the word that was used. Red light cameras, and just people not liking that.
Right.
Just like a speed trap.
Right. And yeah, I discussed this before. The red light cameras, obviously there was a lot of litigation regarding red light cameras. I think that's for the most part been resolved. And so the numbers of municipalities that still use red light cameras has gone down, but I know Raleigh's one, I believe Fayetteville still uses some. So the numbers of people using it have gone down. And that's for various reasons. It is, like I said, it's cost, not producing the funds needed. You mentioned, it may be citizens are unhappy with it. I don't know. I can't speak for other municipalities that have gotten rid of the program, but that is obviously something to think about is, would citizens be unhappy with a red light camera type of system for stopping school buses? I don't know. Again, if it's not producing the funds as predicted, I would assume Bus Patrol would want to terminate the contract. I don't think they want to get involved in an endeavor that costs them money.
We proceed with this and charges are made, citations are issued, and for some reason this contract was canceled. But the charges already been made, be dismissed.
So it'd still be a violation, regardless of whether we terminate the contract, it would still be a violation under our ordinance. Now, procedurally, I'm sure there'd be probably a wind down provision in that would allow to resolve any outstanding tickets. I think that's probably what needs, I'd have to look at the contract, but that'd probably be the prudent thing to write in there is a wind down provision, which would complete all outstanding tickets that are out there. And then once they complete the rest of the ones that Bus Patrol have issued, we can, the ordinance would stand, so we can always install our own cameras and do this internally. I mean, that's always possible, or go with another company. That's always an option in the future. So we always had that ability, once we pass the ordinance, to charge civilly. It's just what happens, obviously, if the contract gets terminated with Bus Patrol themselves.
Any other questions or comments? So Chris, I'm assuming you've had conversation with Bus Patrol about questions you raised about the video footage and all these other things?
Yes, I think at this point, for the most part, I think just about all the questions have been answered. I know as we go along, we think more about it. Questions do pop up. I mean, it happens. And if we move forward with negotiating contract, I'm sure other questions are going to pop up as I'm looking at these provisions. But we've had meetings I've tried to question them on all the things that I could think about. And so, a lot of things procedurally have been resolved of who handles what and what happens at termination and so on. All those things have been answered.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner McCoy?
How long has this bus patrol been in, and how long has it been active?
So, as a company, how long has Bus Patrol been doing this? I don't know how long they go back to. Now they don't have a presence in North Carolina yet. We would be the first one, but they have been operating in Pennsylvania and can't remember what other state they said. They're in a few states right now.
Do you have any
It's a Maryland.
statistics to show us, any statistics to show us for how effective it is and how much money the county is earning off of this?
Yes, so I know they presented at a previous board meeting. They did give projections in other states. Now not every state has the same law. I think our law, the way it's written, is similar to other states, but every state's different how they operate. But they did provide numbers, and again, I apologize, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but they did provide some figures at a previous board meeting on a presentation that they did have a number of citations issued in which there was money there was enough money to be divided for Bus Patrol to take their cut and for school systems to make receive funds as well. And they gave projections here in a county that it would be profitable. Now those are projections. I don't know in practice if it actually be accurate. They may be inflated.
And plus, you're saying that we will have to set up a citizens committee to review the churches and all of that.
Right. So there's an appeal. So if the individual who gets a citation has a right to appeal, I think the figure that Bus Patrol gave and the other states and how they operate, they said I think between 3% and 5% of citations issued are appealed. Now that's probably true. I think at the very beginning, my guess would be that the rate of appeals will probably be much higher, at least at the very beginning. It may taper off back to their percentage that they're saying, but it does require us as a county to set up an appeal board. Again, it can be 3 members, 5 members, whatever. It can be all county employees, can be a combination of civilians and county. We have to figure that out, but it does require us to set that up and to hear appeals. And so that, that's additional time. That's part of this. That's what's required under the statute.
Plus, we're gonna need another staff person.
Well, I think if we use county employees, we probably use current county employees, and it could be, it could be set up like we do with BOA or any other, after hours. Now, again, that would accrue time for that kind of thing if it's not during business hours or comp time. Something to think about. I'm sure either I or Thomas would also have to provide some legal guidance for the appeal board. So I'm happy to do it. That's my role as a staff attorney to provide guidance. That's fine. But we have to work out those logistics.
I found the number, they had projected 1,000 tickets per month. So they had projected 1,000 tickets per month at $250 each. So that'd be $250,000 a month. That's their projection.
And where were these projections coming from?
I believe correct me if I'm wrong, they do,
What state they were coming from, what county they was coming from?
I think they're trying to average what we would take in based on, I believe that they do a study of how many cars pass school buses per year. I think the school system does a report, correct? So I think it's based off their report that they do each year based on what they see and how many cars pass the school buses.
Sheriff, a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How many tickets do we get like this?
On school buses? Ms. McCoy, I would have to say probably less than 10, if that many. Now, the first sergeant did tell Chris and I a little while ago that all of last year they had wrote, 118 something, somewhere around 118 all of last year. But there again, that goes back to relying on the testimony from the school bus driver, any witnesses. That's not saying it didn't happen more often, but that's what they were able to charge. And again, the answer to your question, I would say less than 10 we wrote, because it would have mainly been by the Highway Patrol.
Chris, one more question, I'm gonna give it up. And what kind of county has to invest in this? Do an estimate about what we would have to invest in. Because, I can't go on something until I know what's the cost to the county. And I know, bus patrol is very important. We do have people that do drive and not stop, as opposed to the buses and all. But I'm trying to see if it's worth us spending this kind of money to implement this plan.
Right. So again, depending on the number of the tickets that come in, if it meets their projections, I think they're saying is, and if the sheriff's office is going to be reviewing everything, again, it could be one full-time employee. So that cost is going to have to be built in. Now, I know Dr. Fleming did say he would, out of his 40%, would help, pay for that cost. Now, that's incumbent upon them receiving enough money to pay for that. So if
They
the,
don't know that.
so, yeah, and so you're talking about salary benefits for that individual, that's the cost there. Now, the appeal board, it depends on the time of day and what the makeup is. So if it's after hours using county employees, there's a comp time built into that. I don't have a hard figure. What's going to cost, but those are the two main costs that are going to be incurred. Now, setting it up, negotiating it, ordinance, all those kinds of things, it's handled by my office. So there's no cost in that because that's all handled internally by my office. But to actually implement it now, and the cost of, going back to the actual camera system itself, all that under the contract is bus patrol maintains, installs, maintains, and uninstalls cameras on the buses. So they said that's all covered by them under the contract. So that's not a county cost. That's not how
We don't pay for that.
we do not. Right. So the main costs are just the administrative part of this is what the cost is for the county.
And you had asked when it was established. Bus Patrol was launched in 2017, according to Bus Patrol.
Chris, I have a question. Mr. Johnson, are we, if we do this, will we first county in North Carolina do something?
Correct. Under the civil citation side of things, with Bus Patrol, yes, we will be the first. I know there's at least, drawing a blank on another entity, they did adopt ordinance, but they installed their own cameras, and I believe they used it to assist in charging criminally. So we would be the first ones to implement this type of program in the state.
Do you have to know if they've offered other counties the same situation that they put it down?
I know they approached Wake County, I think Guilford County. Do you have anyone else in your notes? I know those two for sure. Yeah, they said they talked to Wake County and Guilford. No one else has signed a contract at this point. Now, they did say they haven't reached out to a lot of entities.
The contracts are pending, or is it totally done?
I believe all they said is that they had talked to these other entities, is what I noted. So I don't think there's anyone that's about ready to sign a contract. So I think, if we start going through this process, we'd still be the first one. I don't think anyone else is there yet.
Anyone else have any questions for Chris or Sheriff Coates? All right, thanks so much. We appreciate the information. We'll put that on our agenda for next week and move on at that time. Discuss at that time.
So clarification for next week's agenda, do you want it as a discussion item? Do you want him to prepare a resolution? What's your,
Well, my personal opinion is we talked this to death. I think we're to the point we need to decide if we're going to do it or not. So that's kind of where I am, but I can't speak for my fellow commissioners.
I mean, consent agenda or regular item is all I'm,
I think, I'm fine with whatever pleasure, commissioners. Whether we don't consent or we don't, action for discussion, for more discussion. Everybody else here with consent? Consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
This is part of the putting on there for consent. Then when we vote on all the consent, we vote in on that, okay?
Unless it's pulled off, that is correct.
I don't see how we can't vote on it and not vote on the consent.
Well, yes, you have the right to pull an item off the consent agenda if you so desire before it's voted on. But if it make it easier, we could just put it as a separate item.
I think so.
Okay, put it as a separate item. All right, thank you again. Appreciate y'all's time. Sorry we were a little delayed this morning. But you're welcome to stay now if you like.
I got to protect that.
I understand, thank you. Okay, let's see, I believe, next would be a discussion of Harnett Regional Jetport. Mr. Pell, you're on tap again.
Yes, so 2 items to discuss today. I guess I'll start with the FBO item. I believe all of you are aware at this point. We have a current contract with Warren Investments of North Carolina Incorporated that started in 2018. That's set to end June 30th of 2023. Mr. Warren, the owner of that entity, did recently pass. And so right now, the state is working out everything with his assets and so on. So Gary Peacock with Warren Investments in North Carolina Incorporated, who's been running the operations here at the Harnett County Jetport, is intending to have the contract assigned to an entity that he plans on creating. I believe he said that it's going to be Warren Aviation. He plans on setting up that entity, and he hopes by April to have that set up. And so what his intent is to have the contract assigned to him from the estate, to him under that new entity he plans on creating. If he does have the contract assigned to him, then he would take over the current contract that would end June 30th of 2023. Now, under our contract with Warren Investments in North Carolina Incorporated, there is an assignment provision in there that allows the contract to be assigned if the county gives written consent. However, but the consent cannot be unreasonably withheld. So we'd have to have good cause to not allow the assignment. So if you didn't want to, you'd have to have a good reason to, again, good cause not to assign. If we allow the assignment, I do want to point out another provision in there under Article 15, under termination. There's a termination for convenience section in there that does allow termination for 90 days notice, no calls, just either party can terminate upon 90 days notice. So that would allow, if you want to allow the assignment and something weren't to work out or, move on, there's always that provision in there. And so, I want to give the board a heads up on that. They're not ready to move forward with the assignment yet, of course. However, as a board, you would need to decide whether you want to allow the assignment to move forward if Mr. Gary Peacock is able to get the company set up, and if Mr. Warren's estate still wishes to assign the contract to him. So I just want to give update. I'm welcome. If you have any questions about that process or anything else, be happy to answer that.
Anyone have any questions, Mr. Cook? So help me make sure I understand this correctly. So currently we're still with Warren Investments, whatever it's called.
Correct.
And so that would continue until Mr. Peacock was able to get his company or whatever set up and recognized, organized?
Correct. As of right now, we're still operating with Warren Investments of North Carolina Incorporated. The contract's still going on. It's fine. Mr. Warren passed, but the estate is in charge of the contract now at this point.
And they would like to assign that.
And I've been informed that they do wish to assign it to Mr. Gary Peacock, and Mr. Gary Peacock plans on not having it assigned directly to him, but setting it up Warren Investment or Warren Aviation.
Okay. And you said that were we to not go through that assignment, then there was a stipulation for cause as to why we decided not to do that?
Yeah, so they have to get written consent from the board in order to assign it. However, it does say consent cannot be unreasonably withheld. So I equate that to, have to have good cause as to why not to allow the assignment.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions?
And again, you always have there's always that provision there for the 90-day notice of termination. Again, if we were to move forward with that, then the board would have to decide what the next step would be. If it doesn't get signed or it gets terminated, the board will also then have to decide whether to issue an RFP for an FBO, take it over. All those things have to be thought about before you make that decision.
Yes, thank you for that. I know there have been some discussions thrown out, or some ideas thrown out by various parties, so I'm not sure how that come to play and all that, but go ahead and tell us about item 2, and then we'll decide where to fit this in for next week.
Okay. So we made a few amendments to the Jetport Committee bylaws. And so the first change I'll go over is in the membership section. And per the board's request, we wanted to put on 2 ex officio non-voting members from the Board of Commissioners. And so under Article 4, Section 1, yeah, there we go. Okay. As you'll see on there, it just adds that additional line under the membership that will add those two ex officio members. So that's the first major change. If you go to the second page, a new Section 3 has been added in there for removal of members. Again, like any committee, you select the committee members, and so we added in there to allow that, to point out that members serve at the pleasure of the Board of Commissioners, and so those individuals can be removed at any time upon a majority vote of the Board of Commissioners. So just pointing out that these individuals serve at will. Under Article 5, this is a clarification point. We never mentioned the term of the chairperson. We had the term for the vice chair. And so need to make it clear that the chairperson that we put in there to serve an initial term of a 2-year term and then reappointed for a 1-year term. That's a little bit different than the vice chair, but we feel that may be best to have the chair in there for an initial 2-year term. Of course, if the board feels otherwise, we can change that. But we need the clarification there on what their term is. And I believe the only So on page 3, going down, it's a minor change under Article 5, Section 5. Just made it clear, can be removed without cause by a majority vote of the commissioners. Just want to make it clear, majority. And then page 5 under Article 8, under amendments, it just made it clear again. Just say of the committee. It's just a clarification point. So those are the only changes that were added in there. Again, happy to answer any questions or if you have any other changes that you'd like to make.
Ms. McCoy?
I know we've been working on this for a couple months, but I seem to be missing the terms of the board members. Terms of the board members, how long did they serve as term as a board?
So the committee members on the JET Board committee is on section 2. They serve 3-year terms.
Okay.
And they can't serve more than 2 consecutive full terms without, they have to have a 1 year off, so it can be on for 6.
Yeah, I remember that. I just want to make sure, because I didn't see it on here. I want to make sure it's there.
Yes, ma'am. It is in there above the removal of the members for the terms of the general committee members. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Mr. Beck?
And I guess I should make clarification purposes before the changes can be adopted. Per this, the amendment thing, the amendment section, we do have to give 2-week written notice to the committee. Now, the board has the right to change it. It's just a notice, just to let them know that these changes are forthcoming. So just want to let you know, before you officially adopt the changes, we'll give them 2 weeks notice, make any comments they wish to have, and then I'd bring it before the board again to vote on and approve the changes.
So we would not be able to vote on these changes next week?
No, I do have to give 2 weeks, so we will have to push it back.
I just want to say, as Commissioner McCoy, I commend you on the changes that you made in this contract, because I remember the one that we were working on prior to this here, and you made some great, tremendous changes there. Changes that were very much needed, so I want to say that for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy, for his comments. So, I think I'm hearing that we would move at least the item 2, the Harnett Regional JET Board Committee bylaws, to the regular meeting on March the 1st.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that we would put both items on March 1st.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I guess my question would be, Regional JET Board Committee bylaws, I think that could be a part of the consent agenda. Any disagreement there? Okay, so the question would be the FBO, would that be something you want on the consent agenda or something you want as a separate item? Separate item?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so let's do a separate item on the FBO, on the March 1st meeting as well. And then partly the JET Board bylaw changes on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Weatherspoon.
This is Commissioner Weatherspoon. At our March 1st meeting, I know that there are people that may want to come before the board to address this, which is unusual. It's not the way we normally do things. But we want to make an exception and allow, this is not a public hearing, so do we want to make an exception and allow anyone that wishes to speak to come before the board?
And I think, I'll let Paul decide, but you can make it a public comment meeting if you wanted to allow anyone to during that period to comment on it if you just want to be, but that's another option.
Well, they can speak next month. We have a public comment next Monday, so they will be able to speak.
That too. Yeah, I guess I was just referring to the March 1st if you want someone to speak on March 1st, but there's a public comment period next week as well.
So, Ms. Stewart, the March 1st, I know we usually have one of our regular meetings a month for public comments. It's usually the night meeting, March 1st midnight, I think that's 9 a.m., is that correct?
It is.
So, I don't see anything wrong with adding the public comments to that meeting as opposed to the first one, but I'll defer to my fellow commissioners. See how y'all feel. Big public comment one. You okay with that?
This is Paula. I just checked with Development Services. They don't have public hearings next month, so that it won't matter which meeting we do it at.
All right, so I think I'm hearing a agreement or seeing nods from everybody, so we'll just make that change for the March meeting. That's good. Commissioner McCoy?
I'm sorry.
Okay, fine.
I want to know what the public comments are they for or against, or you have for or against? That's what I want to understand. When we open it up to public comment, so for or against, because we're making the decision, right?
Well, I think, I know that, I think Gary Peacock wants to speak, address the board. I'm not sure who else. There may be other people that are interested in, since his contract is up to be reassigned, there may be other people that are interested in being considered for the contract for the operation of the FPO. They may desire to speak. I don't know, but I do know Gary Peacock does want to speak. And whether he speaks on the 15th or the 1st, that's his call, I guess.
Well, that's all I want to know, what position are they taking as far as speaking, because I didn't understand that. Because we are making the decision. So, they're speaking for it or against it, so give us maybe, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Okay, did we get all the questions answered on that item? Very good. Okay, the next item on the agenda, discuss the indemnity agreement between the county and Serenity Point. Mr. Pell?
Yes, and I believe have Keith Burns with Nixon Pruitt on the line. That's
right, I'm here.
Okay, can everyone hear him? Okay. All right. So I'll give a little background to start with, and Mr. Burns, feel free to chime in whenever you need to if I'm saying something incorrectly. But a little background, if you all are aware, Greenfield Serenity LLC is developing a subdivision off of Rawls Church Road. It's called Serenity Point. And with any subdivision going in, they're required to install necessary utilities. And once those utilities are installed, those utilities are turned over to Harnett County for operations and maintenance, the water and sewer lines. And so as part of this process for the Serenity development, they are being required to make some off-site improvements along Rawls Church and then across 401. They're putting in a sewer main along that stretch. And as part of making those off-site improvements that are off their property, to just have an understanding between the parties and to protect the county that once the lines are actually turned over to the county. A lot of these lines are in what we Mr. Burns and I agree that is right-of-way along Rawls Church Road, and they've also obtained some easements along that route. But the right-of-way, we agree that there is right-of-way there. That's our stance, that there's right-of-way. However, once the lines are completed and turned over to the county, if there happens to be an individual who challenges the fact that it's in right-of-way. The developer would have to indemnify the county and provide for the legal defense in such lawsuits. Or, as a county, if you're aware, we also have the right to condemnation, and if we go through condemnation proceedings, it would be incumbent upon the developer as well to pay for the cost of such proceedings. Because the issue with the developers is private entities don't have the power of condemnation. That's the issue, and so that's why they have to either put in the right of way or get easements. They don't have the same powers as we do as a county. So again, this agreement, which I'd be asking for approval and to move forward with, is just to protect the county for a term of 3 years, which I believe is the statute of limitations for any lawsuit challenging the location of the lines, whether it's in the right of way. They'd have to provide the cost of that defense. If you want no further detail, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I do allow Mr. Burns a chance to add anything else that he would like to say.
Thank you. You've done a great job of summarizing the agreement. I reiterate that all that sewer main is in the right of way, and so we don't expect any problem. Well, I should say there's a small bit of it that's in the easements that we require, but it's all right of way or easement, and we don't expect any problems. So, this agreement will never be seen again after today.
Thank you so much. I think that was going to be my question, that at least at this point, we believe all of this sewer line will be put either in right of way or where easements have been obtained.
That's exactly right. We've taken the further step of surveying all of the right of way, and that survey is being attached to the agreement as an exhibit. And the survey then has also been used in connection with the construction drawings that have been prepared for the installation of the sewer main. So that sewer main isn't anywhere outside the right of way. It's only because there was some construction error when it was put in the ground. But everybody's plan is it's always going to be in the right of way, except for one instance when it's going to go in an easement, and we know it's going in that easement that we've already obtained.
And those easements would, they're in the name of Serenity, however, they can be assigned to the county once we obtain ownership. So that process has been completed, and it will be those easements will be turned over to us.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Appel, Mr. Burns? Okay, sounds good. I believe we could include this on the consent agenda as well. Any feel different? Yeah, we'll do that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burns. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
And then, Mr. Pell, NCDOT's request that streets be partially abandoned from the state secondary road system.
Yes, so under General Statute 136-63, citizens can petition, may request on petition that the North Carolina Department of Transportation abandon from any road in their secondary road system. And so DOT came to the county indicating that that they did receive a citizen petition to abandon from the secondary road system a portion of SR 1807, also known as Mixon Road. It's a 0.2 mile location. Lindsay, were you able to pull it up on the map? Just click on that, yeah. I think you just click on the map itself, and it should show, do a satellite image. Click on the satellite image. Down at the bottom, the icon, well, no. There's an icon on the map that says satellite. Okay. And so what's been presented is that they plan on abandoning the portion that you see going straight down. It looks like it's a dirt road that at the corner of that loop. It goes down into farmland, if you can see what I'm talking about. because you had that circle with some townhomes on it, and then there's a portion of Mixon Road that goes down into that farmland. I believe it's unimproved. Well, at least I don't believe it's paved. But that's the portion that they're requesting to abandon from the secondary road system. And as part of the process, DOT has asked the county to adopt a resolution approving such a abandonment. Now, it's not required by statute, but it's my opinion that before you adopt a resolution to hold a public hearing, I think that's just the best practice to make sure all interested parties in that area have a chance to be heard. The DOT did not indicate who petitioned to have it abandoned, but it was citizens. I don't know if it's the owners of that farmland or the town homeowners, but I believe it would be appropriate to hold a public hearing to allow any interested individuals to come and say, whether they're for or against the abandonment. Now, I believe DOT, regardless, can abandon it even if we're not on board, but they have asked us to lend their support in adopting a resolution. In the packet, I presented a draft resolution that if you agree to with their assessment to abandon, that you would sign at the February 15th meeting after the close of the public hearing. But if you have any other questions, I'll try to answer them, and if I can't, I can reach out to DOT before that meeting. Okay, they will be on the phone on the 15th. Okay.
Any questions? So, we at this point, I'm sure DOT knows, we at this point don't know who's made this request. We don't know. You want to
I'm assuming DOT knows, but when they sent us the request in a letter, it just says that they received a petition in their office to abandon it, and that they have already reviewed it, and that they suggest abandoning it from their system.
I think in that case that I certainly agree with you that we probably need to have a public hearing just in case there's some good thought out there that we're not aware of. Any other discussion? Everybody agree? All right, thank you.
I think that covers me.
And good job, you called up from the beginning of the day. Okay, development services briefing on upcoming public hearings.
Thank you. Oh, I like the new digs. It's nice in here.
Yeah, your first visit, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've kind of been here a couple of times before. First official visit. That's correct. We have 3 rezonings. In the last work session that we had, we mentioned about if we had any slight controversy, we would bring it to you in a work session prior to going to the original meeting. So 2 of these, we had people speak in opposition, and take that off for a minute. And one of them is a little weird because it's coming back before the county commissioners for the second time. After if a case goes before the county commissioners, if they are denied after 1 year, they're able to come back and request it again. And so that's one of the cases. Matter of fact, I'll start with it. And I don't know if it falls in line with what's on the board, but I'll just quickly go through them because I know you're at lunch hour. It's Harnett Central Holdings, which is Harvey Montague. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He has several developments that are taking place along Harnett Central Road. That whole road's been developing for a while now. And this is 75 acres. The request is to rezone the property from RA40 to RA20ER. And I'm going to give you a copy because I know the question at hand. I'll do it real quick. And y'all can just pass it down. This is the proposed development that they're doing. And I need to get that back if you can. But what they're asking for, this is what's proposed as it's currently zoned. We suspect, and you can ask this question on Monday night to the developer himself, how many additional lots, because I know that question is going to come up, would he get by doing this rezoning? Jay and I, just from our discussions, we believe probably about 20 more lots would be our guess. We may be wrong, but if that question comes up, but you can see as Commissioner Witherspoon has it now as he passes it down, exactly what we have. The site, we approved it, or we recommended approval a year ago, and we still recommend approval now. The board at that time had concerns with traffic as well as I think the school system as well, but it's in our development node. It's an area that we're looking for growth. Well, we're not looking for growth, but if we're going to grow, we prefer it be in that area, and so we didn't have a problem with it. The planning board heard this case at their meeting earlier this month, and it was 4-1. 4-1. We had one person who voted against it, but it was approved at that case too, at that board too. How many people do we have?
There was several attended opposition, one spoke.
Right, so you had several people show up, spoke in opposition, and I think they had a spokesperson, so it was, one. So I would anticipate that you may have some folks show up for this one too on Monday night. So are there any questions that you guys have of us? You all have of us?
Any questions, Mark, on that one?
Okay. The second one that I have is a request from RA20R to commercial. This is out in Western Harnett area. It's specifically Nursery Road and Ray Road, little triangle property there. We didn't have anyone show up in opposition for this, and it passed with no issues. They're looking to do a Dollar General on that site. So unless you all have any questions, I'll proceed to the last one. That one's pretty straightforward. And then the last one, it's kind of a weird situation. They're rezoning RA40 to RA30. We're in favor of it as well, and it passed 5-0. They had some folks show up in opposition. Oddly enough, the folks that showed up in opposition, the developer on this, he's the one, I don't know do you have a map, or do you have the staff report sitting in front of you by chance? Keep going. Well, no, is that it? Yeah. Is that Buckhorn? Yeah, there you go. Scroll to the vicinity map right there. You see the property is located in the green area on there, but just above it is what we call minor subdivisions that the same gentleman done. And the folks that are complaining are coming from that minor subdivision, which has just normal. Does it even have dirt? Does it dirt roads, or it just has a gravel road in it now? When this development is done, it'll have a paved road, and they have water pressure issues also. All of that will have to be upgraded. So in other words, once this development gets put in place, a lot of their issues will go away. If it don't get put in place, a lot of their issues will remain. So we're in favor of it, and it was formerly the site has, you'll see, if you saw the aerial of the site, I think there's some chicken houses that were originally on it that they, when everyone lost their chicken houses during the contract loss, so they're no longer in use, and so they would be torn down, and I don't know what else would stay there. I think there's a horse barn or something there that may stay there if it's that. But I think these are just basic 25,000 square foot lots. I mean, they're not doing really small lots. It would be on septic, not sewer, just given the area, where it's at. So I'm not sure if the people will show up in opposition again at this case, but that's kind of the background story on it. If you have any questions, I'm available to talk about that one as well. Obviously, the more contentious one would be the one on Harnett Central Road.
Thank you. Any questions from Mark? Any of these? All right, thanks so much. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Honeycutt, discuss proposed fiscal policy changes.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Yes, we have crossed that threshold.
Yes, sir, we did. Just wanted to briefly bring back, thank you. Just wanted to briefly bring back to you the fiscal policy changes that we had discussed at an earlier work session. I will be brief. Most of these are just general housekeeping items to keep us in line with our budget ordinance. The one that I really wanted to bring to your attention is, and I apologize, there are no page numbers on this, but it's actually on page 6. We wanted to include some language, and this is to address this previous year when we had some loss of state and funding revenue due to the COVID impact. The board made the decision to step in and to make up that difference and that loss of the revenue so that those programs could continue. And previously, your ordinance had indicated that if there was a loss of grant funding or federal revenue, that you would not step in and put that in. So what we've done is we've actually revised this policy to allow you, in the event that there is another pandemic, I hope that there isn't, but it will give you more flexibility to amend and to step in and to take over and supplant or actually budget those funds to allow those programs to go, but you would have to approve that to be done. So that's more in keeping with your practice of the previous year, because there were several programs that were at risk of being lost, and they were programs that had a positive impact on our county and our citizens. So that would allow you to keep those going. And then also, if you'll look down for item number 14, level of budgeting, with the new computer system that we now have the flexibility to, instead of having one department to identify several programs, we have the ability now to expand that classification so that we can actually look at and break out those expenditures and revenues associated with those programs. And what this would allow would give the department heads more flexibility to move funds across their budgets or departments that they actually have responsibility for. So that just gives them a little bit more flexibility. Does anyone have any questions about that?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, this would basically give us the I'd say permission within our guidelines to vote on each individual one of these that would come up. It would not be an automatic thing, but give us an opportunity to help out in that situation if needed.
Yes, sir. Well, normally, the way it is now, there are certain transfers that can be done. They are approved by myself and the county manager, and then they're brought to you at a later date. But it's done in such a way that it's low level. It does not. It doesn't need the upper board approval before it's done, but it gives flexibility to the department in continuing those daily operations. So these would still be reported to you. I mean, they're included in the end of your packet each month so that you can see what has been done. But a lot of times now with the departments being broken out, one that comes to mind is animal services. They have, animal control and then the animal services. So that would allow Barry the flexibility to move that money across those departments. In totality, it's still the animal services function, but instead of him having to stop and wait for approval, possibly 2 to 3 weeks, depending on if there's a meeting, whatever, it will give him, the manager, more flexibility. But again, it still has to go through the county manager and the finance officer, but still reported to you. So, but there again, if there's anything that ever comes up that's in question, the managers, always brings that to your attention, or it's discussed with you in work session. If it's something that's, that they feel that you would need your input on. Is that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So basically, help him to use the funds that have been budgeted for animal services in the most needed area between those two.
That's correct.
Areas that he oversees.
That's correct. And also keep in mind that the main core of transfers still remain intact. So they would not be allowed to increase like salary money or money for capital. Those are just those day-to-day operating. So those other restrictions would still stay intact.
Thank you for that explanation. Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Uncut?
And then moving on to 17, we've added bullets F and G. And in a sense, what this would allow the county manager to do, and let me just read this so that I get the wording precise. execute on behalf of the Board of Commissioners any other contract, change order, purchase order, or other instrument incurring any obligation which is specifically approved by the Board of Commissioners. So we're, in writing, you direct the county manager to act on your behalf. And then for item G, authorize payment in an amount not to exceed $5,000 in settlement of any liability claims against the county or against any of its officers or employees. And I believe I'm correct in saying that that would, in the past, the county attorney has had to come to you to get authority to settle claims. This would allow him to continue that authority to do those under $5,000 and under, but anything above that would still be brought to you during a work session and discussed. I'm learning to read mask. So, but that would just be stated in our policy to give them that authority. It's just written and documented.
Any questions on that item, Ms. Harnett? Thank you.
And then lastly, under education funding policies, item number 3, we have updated the policy to read an amount equivalent to 65%, and this is the funding for education capital and capital maintenance, an amount equivalent to 65% of the prior year's lottery proceeds. That's normally in our budget ordinance every year, but to remain consistent with our written policy, it needs to be reflected in this document as well.
So it'll be both.
Yes, sir. So that they're both state the same thing.
Any questions?
That's it.
Thank you. So what, that 65% goes to capital money, what happens to that other 35%?
Normally, it is retained in that lottery fund, and that is what is used for the future purchase of land.
Wasn't there something in the CIP where there was some suggestion about using the other 35% for something else?
Yes, for capital maintenance, but I believe that may, we will have to look at that with the budget, because if the Board of Education accepts that $10 million grant, we will forfeit those lottery proceeds. So basically, what has been recognized as a revenue funding source will no longer be there. So it depends on what the school system will do.
Understood. Thank you.
So if you don't have any questions, this is the document that will be placed on the consent agenda for Monday.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Harnett.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart, county manager.
She's got one more.
Oh, sorry.
I have one more.
I've got lunch sitting in front of me. I'm trying to move it along.
I understand. I will be just as brief as I can. So at the direction of the board, the town of Anger, most specifically the ABC board, had requested a refund of an overpayment. And at your request, I did reach out to Shirley Brinkley, who is the ABC board finance officer now. Got a little bit more information, a little bit more background. So in short, the April 2020 ABC board funds that are remitted to the county, there was an overpayment. They sent us a check for $5873.49 when it should have been for $948.04. So creating an overpayment of $49.25.45, excuse me. So my discussion with Shirley is she has provided documentation. An audit of the ABC board statements or financial position revealed that there was an overpayment. Their audit has been corrected. The report has been resubmitted. And so I am recommending that the board proceed with reimbursing those funds. And if you are in agreement, there will be a budget amendment on Monday's board meeting to appropriate that money so that we can reimburse the ABC board that money.
Any questions?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Weatherspoon. In the initial report
Yes, sir.
back May 6, 2020, it shows the number of bottles sold. is 115,334. Those are in 5 cent per bottle category, and 10,679 in the 1 cent category.
Yes, sir.
When I go to their revised numbers in the 5 cent category, the number changed to, let's see,
16,000.
16,830.
Yes, sir.
And the 1 cent changed to 10,654. And then there's another, well, my question right there is, they didn't just add a 1. Those numbers changed. How do we know which numbers, I mean, these numbers don't add up.
Well, at first, when they resubmitted the corrected, my thought was when I saw the 115 was that an additional digit had been added. So when I received the revised report, I did reach out to Ms. Brinkley, and she indicated to me that when they went back through the receipts, did a thorough audit of the bottle count, that the corrected submission is indeed correct. They are not sure how that number, they're not sure if a number was picked up incorrectly, but I do believe that was done by the previous finance officer.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't mean to try to eliminate that last one for you there.
That's okay.
All right. Ms. Stewart now, County Manager.
Yes, thank you. So I'll give you the numbers for today for COVID, and then I'm going to turn it over to Larry to speak for a few minutes. Larry Smith, our Emergency Services Director. Today, our confirmed cases are 8,782, and deaths reported 131. And then John Rouse wanted me to report some numbers to you. There's 6,600 people on the waiting list in Harnett County right now, and we're only receiving 600 doses per week is our allocation. So it's going to take us quite a while to get through this is still groups 1 and 2. So we are still, this is the 65 and older, essential workers, healthcare. So when people ask, we are only getting 600 doses per week, and there's 6,600 people on the waiting list. So do the math. It's going to take a while to get, several months to get the doses for the people that are on the waiting list.
And are all of those doses still designated for second shots?
Yes, that's separate from this. This is our base
Okay.
allocation. This
So
is our,
we're getting that new doses for first time.
right. It's 600 doses for dose 1.
Okay,
That's
makes me
correct.
feel better. Thank you.
Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Are those numbers, they don't include Central Harnett?
This is just the Harnett County Health Department numbers, correct. I don't know how many, Harnett Health was not taking appointments, so they don't have a number on a waiting list because they just do them a mass vaccination with no appointments. So we don't know how many people are doing that.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Just wanted to cover a couple things. As far as our emergency services go, first of all, we'd like to thank the board for the passing of the COVID sick leave. January hit my department pretty hard, and that's helped out a lot. A lot of our newer employees got hit by that, so that really helped us a lot. We're 100% again. Everything's going good. We've got all of our units staffed, and our EMS personnel are assisting John and his folks with the first round and second round shots. They're actually, my supervisors right now are working on finishing up all the first responders in the next week or so, getting their second dose to them. We're working right now. We've got a meeting on Thursday, but what we're looking at is next Wednesday, the 17th, at Harnett Central, the school campus. We're going to utilize the whole campus, parking lots, roadways, and we're going to conduct a drive-through for the second round, for the second dose. We're looking at about 700 doses that we'll be giving out. John's folks are actually contacting those individuals and making appointments for them. So we'll be able to ease that process through that line. We're working with our partners on that. Kind of in the final planning stages right now, logistically, just getting all the pieces together, and then we'll try our first one next week. We're going to take the lessons learned from that second dose so that if we end up having to do a first dose drive-through, we can kind of take all those lessons learned and move from there. So, and that's where we're headed. So, any questions?
Any questions?
All right.
Thanks so much for all you're trying to do for our citizens. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. This is Paula again. Moving on under the county manager's report. I received a request through my office. The letter was sent to Harnett County Board of Commissioners. I shared it with you via email. It's also in your packet. The Board of Elections is wanting to meet with our board to discuss a location, finding a new location for Board of Elections. They feel like that it needs to be more convenient, easier to find for the public, and they would like all their operations housed in one place to include all election supplies, dedicated space for meetings, trainings, and for voting. So I did follow up with Claire Jones, who's the Board of Elections Director, and I asked her about what type square footage are we talking about. So currently, they're utilizing 4,000 square feet in different locations, but that does not include the space they need for meetings, training, or voting. So that's just for their staff and then the storage of all their elections equipment. So it would need to be somewhere, I would say, in the neighborhood of maybe 6,500 to 7,000 square feet in order to have all of those things together. So I just wanted to check with the board, and they do want to come and address the board. I'm not sure if it's their whole board or just their chairman, but if you would like me to, I can invite them to an upcoming meeting. I just need your direction on how you want to handle this. And staff has been looking at space for Board of Elections for a number of years. When we were going to build this building, we were hoping we could include them in this building, but it just didn't work out because the parking is an issue over here for a one-stop site. We really don't have a nice county location for them to go to, so this is not something new. This has been going on ever since I've been in the county, trying to find somewhere to house Board of Elections, because it's just such a unique department that needs access. They need a lot of space, but they only need it a small amount of time. So that's where the problems come in, but I'm not going to speak on their behalf. That will be up to them to come tell you their needs. But I do know that we have been looking at it, and we have several options, but I want to know what the pleasure of the board is as far as entertaining them to come and speak to you.
Any comments? Yeah, I think we're good. We just want to find
Just a work session? Okay.
If I may, what are some of the options? I know at one time they were interested in the library. What other locations have they looked at?
That's the only place they've looked at, to my knowledge. The problem, and several of you know the problem with that site, again, is now that Lillington put that concrete median, that is not a very accessible place, and there's not really that much parking. The building is great, but it causes a lot of downtown Lillington traffic issues if it's a one-stop site. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but that's just, in the past, it has not been a great site for the town of Lillington for the voting place. But the building would meet the need, definitely.
I just want to add to that, I'm aware of that, because I live in Lillington. There used to be our voting precinct there. But the way Front Street comes through Lillington, and all that, the whole problem. I don't know.
I agree it's a problem. It's not driver friendly.
And we are looking, as y'all know, at some other options for the rest of the county departments that are not on this side of the river. So we're doing hoping to, in the budget, do a feasibility study on all the rest of the space needs so that they can be addressed. But I just wanted you to know that but I do want to give the Board of Elections time to come and speak to you. But we already know about their needs, and we have been looking at them. And in fact, we've given them 2 storage areas inside the warehouse on McKinney Parkway. So they do have adequate storage. It's just they're not under one roof. And I understand the problems that causes. And I understand where they are is not a great location for the public. So we are aware of it and working on it, but we'll let them come at an upcoming work session. I'll just get with the director and find out when they're able to come.
Let me just follow up now. You said currently they're probably using around 4,000 square feet.
Correct.
And 7,000 square feet would be if there were meeting rooms or conflict.
And that's just my speculation. I haven't talked to anybody about how much space a voting site. We would need to talk to the state to find out exactly.
We'll use it as a voting site. Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
I have a question.
Commissioner McCoy?
We don't have any building in this county that will accommodate them, because they have to be in the county seat next year in Mills. What is going into the library now? Is it the school board?
That's still undecided. That's being worked out between the town of Lillington and the Board of Commissioners and the Board of Education.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Okay, the next thing is our regular meeting for February 15th at 6 p.m., the agenda. If you'll notice, we do need to add, I forgot to add this, we need to, the special presentation number 5 on there. I just wanted you to know that we're doing a proclamation to honor Marsha Johnson, who's retiring as our Clerk of Superior Court at the end of this month. You're going to approve the proclamation under consent agenda, and then we'll honor her after the consent agenda is discussed. Most of the things on there are the routine things that you'll see. Item I is the CCCC Harnett County Promise MOU changes that were spoken about today. We'll remove item J and move that to the March 1st meeting. Item K is the indemnity agreement between the county and Serenity Point that Chris Appel spoke to you about today. Item L is, actually these will move up one, so this will be item K. It would be the Harnett County Finance Officer requests approval of the revised fiscal policy. And then L would be the Town of Anger ABC Board's request for a refund that'll be on the consent agenda. And then item 8 would be the zoning request, the public hearings, and the, item 8 is the road request. And then items 9, 10, 11 are the zoning changes. And that will be your meeting on the 15th.
And one thing on the 15th, it does say, it says up top, the meeting will not be open, but it will be to a limited number. And we think that's 16, but we need to verify that.
And also I failed to mention, under the appointments, we'll need to go over those today as well. That would be item 7. So you've got your appointments listed in front of you. So just make sure you're okay with those appointments that will be put forth on Monday night.
Oh, I got a question on the boards, on the county board of equalization and review, you know, the applications come in.
We have received several for several of these boards this week, so they'll be on the next work session for your, they didn't make it in time to be on this agenda. So we'll have them, and that we have gotten several, and thank y'all whoever's been out. We've gotten several requests to be on boards this week, more than I get all the copies of them, and this has probably been a busy week. Last week and this week, we've gotten several, so I believe there were some for that board, which is a good thing. We usually don't have a lot. And then you have before you your upcoming meetings, invitations, and dates of interest. The only thing new on there besides regular meetings will be closed on Friday, April 2nd for Good Friday, and then May 3rd is our tentative agenda, or our tentative joint meeting with the Board of Education. And we plan to have that downstairs in the large training room so we can socially distance.
Paul, have we got a tentative date for the legislative luncheon?
We have not, and that's one of the things we need to talk to you about. Is there a time that you want to try to do that again now that they're in session? I don't know their availability. If you want us to reach out, we can reach out and find out when they will be in recess or when there might be a time convenient they could come.
I believe typically Monday, Tuesday, Monday's generally the best day. They don't typically go into session until, I think the Senate goes at 7, the House goes at 5, or vice versa. Mondays are usually a real good day for them.
Okay. We'll reach out to our delegation and see what what works with some of our upcoming meetings. If y'all have something in mind, if you have a particular meeting you'd like us to look at, that'll be fine as well. We felt like if we pushed it out to May, or, at least get through February, March, get through like the sixth season, maybe, and then the building will be ready, that kind of thing. We'll be more prepared to have it now. We'll definitely look at a few dates and get back to you on that. I did want to follow up. There's two things I have left. One is Commissioner Nickel had asked about the size of our school sites, so I had somebody run that while we were in the meeting. So Overhills Middle sits on 36.42 acres. Western Harnett Middle sits on 55.94 acres. I think 25.85 is, there's two different parcels, so I'm assuming one might be the school and one may be the athletic fields or part of the park. Highland Middle is on 62.19 acres. Dunn Middle, 39.99 acres. Harnett Central Middle is 47.77 acres, but that includes the fields again. Coates Irwin Middle is 39.91 acres, and Benhaven Elementary is 45.7 acres, just kind of to give y'all an idea of the size of those properties.
And that Island Middle site was also purchased at that time for a potential high school as well, which still could go there and sharing of athletic fields, such as that.
Correct.
One reason that number's so high.
Right. And then the last thing I have are the legislative priorities. We emailed them to you this week, and this is also, you have a hard copy in front of you, and I just wanted to make sure you're okay with this format and okay with us going ahead and sharing it with our legislators. We'll email it to them, and then when they come, we'll give them a hard copy. But we just wanted to make sure the format was okay with you and that we had understood your priorities correctly.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Stewart?
And that's all I have, if there are no questions.
Okay, anything else come for us today? Not, we'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you for your time today.